expand on how agrarianism shaped the human form and also how it shaped our concept of time. I'm going to start with how agrarianism shaped our concept of time. What many people might not realize is in a hunter-gatherer mindset, you need a lot of spatial reasoning. So a lot of your concept of time takes place in the immediate here and now. Whereas when you have a agrarian civilization, you must take into context and into your mind the past and past events and what happened with floods and things of this nature. You must take into consideration the future. You must take into consideration planning for droughts, insect plagues, and all sorts of things. This is what changed our concept of time. The agrarian year or solar year we still use to this day in a somewhat bastardized sense from it's more of a Catholic version of the true solar year. So basically our whole concept of time was developed because we became agrarian instead of hunter-gatherers. The hunter-gatherer thinks, again, in the immediate sense, very little gradation in how they think. It is simply, how can I track that prey and catch it? Okay, it does take a lot of great physical effort and a lot of hand-eye coordination and things of that nature, which are all great and were actually maintained in the agrarian civilization because agrarianism allowed us to specialize, which created different castes of society. So we're going to get into how it formed the different kinds of people. When we became agrarian and we were capable of having enough fuel to, by fuel I mean food resources, to know that we would be able to make it to the next year and not simply have to hobble along looking for more prey and more berries to forage, we began to specialize and we began to create the different castes of society, where you had a priestly caste, you had a farmer caste, you had a merchant caste, you had the different castes of society. And each of these castes was capable of specializing. The thing that people don't understand is, as we know from Charles Darwin's The Origin of Species and, of course, modern biology, we know that animals change, anatomically and also molecularly, because we know about genes, so an anatomical change has to take place on a molecular level, by the foods that they eat. Now, what's interesting is what many people might not understand is the foods that you eat obviously are made up of chemical components. How those chemical components act on the body creates very good substantial changes that eventually become hereditary. For example, Caucasoids of North Africa and of Europe and East India can actually digest milk, which is not a trait that is common in other forms of human. So this is an adaptation that we obtained through our use of dairy as a staple food. In other ways that it had changed us is it allowed us to get much larger. It allowed people to get bigger. And you will see that. You will see that agrarian people tend to be much larger than hunter-gatherers. Why is this? Because we have the fuel to get bigger, stronger bones, stronger muscles, things of that nature. A lot of what the health crises are today and a lot of the mental issues that you see today are because we have been going further and further away from this agrarian lifestyle and toward a sort of lifestyle that does not take consideration of the different points in time, the different points of the year, things of this nature. We are beginning to separate ourselves from the natural world and see ourselves apart from the natural world instead of as a part of it. I do believe one of the downsides of Dr. William Pierce's cosmotheism was his almost complete ignorance toward the importance of seasonal holidays. Now, I wouldn't recommend going back to the pagan holidays because I think that's a little bit silly, but I see nothing wrong with incorporating the, the Christian holidays, which are more or less Christianized Roman pagan holidays, and celebrating them. But there also needs to be more of an attempt to eat more traditionally, more traditional foods, such as a starch-based diet with small amounts of meat and fish and dairy added to it with eggs, because this all correlates to a physiological difference. It changes you. Our bodies are not adapted to eat junk food and garbage, but that is what in modern society we eat.